In this video, we are going to learn how to subtract fractions which have different denominators. To understand how we subtract two fractions with different denominators, let us consider an example. Let us consider 2 over 3 minus 1 over 5. So first of all, let us have a look at the denominators. Now the denominators are the numbers on the bottom. So for the first fraction, 2 over 3, the number on the bottom is 3, and so the denominator is 3. And for the second fraction, 1 over 5, the number on the bottom is 5, and so the denominator is 5. Now, we can see that these two numbers are different, so these two fractions have different denominators. Now, how do we subtract them? First of all, what we need to do is find a common denominator. That is, we want to find a common multiple of the denominators 3 and 5. Now, note that 15 is a common multiple of 3 and 5. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite the fractions 2 over 3 and 1 over 5 as equivalent fractions whose denominators are equal to 15. So let's do that. So first of all, have a look at the denominator 3 of the first fraction. How do we change 3 to 15? We need to multiply it by 5. And since we want an equivalent fraction, we need to multiply the numerator by 5 as well. Now for the second fraction, the denominator is 5. How do we change that to 15? We need to multiply it by 3. And since we want an equivalent fraction, we need to multiply the numerator by 3 as well. So this is what we get. So what do we end up with? We have 2 times 5, which is 10, divided by 3 times 5, which is 15. And from this we subtract 1 times 3, which is 3, divided by 5 times 3, which is 15. So now we can see that we have two fractions, the denominators of which are equal to 15. That is, these two fractions have the same denominator. So what we're going to do next is we're going to use the method to subtract two fractions which have the same denominator. And what is that method? We just need to subtract the numerators and write that difference over the common denominator. So what do we end up with? Well, the common denominator in this case is 15, so we write that in the denominator. And in the numerator, we are going to subtract the numerators of the original two fractions. So we have 10 minus 3. Now 10 minus 3 is equal to 7, and we divide this by 15. And so this is our required answer. That is, 2 over 3 minus 1 over 5 is equal to 7 over 15. So how do we subtract two fractions with different denominators? First of all, we find a common denominator, and then we rewrite the fractions into equivalent fractions having that common denominator. Next, we use the rule for subtracting two fractions with the same denominator. That is, we subtract the numerators and write that difference over the common denominator, and that will give us our required difference of the two fractions. Now note that we can use any common denominator of the two fractions. Consider this example once more. 2 over 3 minus 1 over 5. Now the denominators are 3 and 5. Now we have already used 15 as a common denominator. Now let us use 30. 30 is also a common multiple of 3 and 5, and so we can use that to find the difference of these two fractions. Now, how do we do that? The denominator of the first fraction is 3. How do we change that to 30? We need to multiply it by 10. And since we want an equivalent fraction, we need to multiply the numerator by that same number 10. Now, for the second fraction, the denominator is 5. How do we change that to 30? We need to multiply it by 6. And since we want an equivalent fraction, we need to multiply the numerator by 6 as well. So what do we end up with? We have 2 times 10, which is 20, divided by 3 times 10, which is 30. And from this, we subtract 1 times 6, which is 6, divided by 5 times 6, which is 30. So now we have two fractions, the denominators of which are equal. Both of them have a denominator of 30. And so how do we subtract these two fractions? All we need to do is subtract the numerators of the original two fractions. So we have 20 minus 6, and we write this over the denominator of 30. Now 20 minus 6 is equal to 14, and we divide this by 30. Now, note that the greatest common factor of 14 and 30 is 2. So we're going to divide the numerator 14 by 2, and we're going to divide the denominator 30 by 2 as well. Now, 14 divided by 2 is equal to 7, and 30 divided by 2 is equal to 15. And so we can see that this is our required answer, and we have obtained the same result once more. That is, once again, we have obtained that the difference of the two fractions is 7 over 15. So we can see that we can use any common denominator we want. However, usually we use the least common denominator in order to make our calculations simpler. Now, let us have a look at a few practice problems to properly understand the method to subtract two fractions with different denominators. Let us have a look at the first problem. We have 4 over 5 minus 3 over 4. Now, the denominators are the numbers on the bottom, so we have 5 and 4. Now, we need to find a common multiple of 5 and 4. 20 is a common multiple. So next what we do is we rewrite these fractions into equivalent fractions whose denominators are equal to 20. So how do we change 5 to 20? We need to multiply it by 4. We want an equivalent fraction, so we multiply the numerator by 4 as well. And how do we change 4 to 20? We need to multiply it by 5. And since we want an equivalent fraction, we need to multiply the numerator by 5 as well. So what do we end up with? We have 4 times 4, that is 16, divided by 5 times 4, that is 20, minus 3 times 5, which is 15, divided by 4 times 5, which is 20. So now we have two fractions, the denominators of which are both equal to 20. That is, we have two fractions with the same denominator. So what we do is we write 20 in the denominator of the resultant fraction, and in the numerator we subtract the numerators of the original two fractions. So we have 16 minus 15, that is 1, and we divide this by 20, and so this is a required answer, that is 4 over 5 minus 3 over 4 is equal to 1 over 20. Next, let us have a look at the next problem. Here we have 5 over 6 minus 1 over 12. The denominators are 6 and 12. Now we want to find a common multiple of 6 and 12. 12 is a common multiple of 6 and 12. So let's rewrite these fractions into equivalent fractions whose denominators are equal to 12. Now how do we change 6 to 12? We have to multiply it by 2. So we're going to multiply the numerator by 2 as well. And for the second fraction, the denominator is already 12, so we don't have to do anything to change it. So what do we end up with? We have 5 times 2, which is 10, divided by 6 times 2, which is 12, and from this we subtract 1 over 12. So we have the same denominator of 12, and so in the denominator of the resultant fraction we will have 12, and in the numerator we will subtract the numerators of the original two fractions. So we have 10 minus 1, which is 9, and we divide this by 12. Now note that the greatest common factor of 9 and 12 is 3. So we divide this numerator 9 by 3, and we divide the denominator 12 by 3 as well. And then what do we get? 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. So this is our required answer. 5 over 6 minus 1 over 12 is equal to 3 over 4. Now let us have a look at the next problem. In this problem, we have 9 over 4 minus 2 over 5. The denominators are 4 and 5. We want a common multiple of these two, and a common multiple of 4 and 5 is 20. So we're going to rewrite these fractions into equivalent fractions whose denominators are equal to 20. How do we change 4 to 20? We multiply 4 by 5, and so we multiply the numerator 9 by 5 as well. How do we change 5 to 20? We need to multiply it by 4, and so we multiply the numerator by 4 as well. If we do this, what do we get? 9 times 5 is 45. We divide that by 4 times 5, which is 20. And from this, we subtract 2 times 4, which is 8, divided by 5 times 4, which is 20. So the two fractions have the same denominator of 20, and so we will write 20 in the denominator of the resultant fraction. And in the numerator, we will subtract the numerators of the original two fractions. So we have 45 minus 8, that is equal to 37, and we divide this by 20. And so this is our required answer. That is, 9 over 4 minus 2 over 5 is equal to 37 over 20. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. See you next time.